Welcome to today's lunchtime lecture. For those of you that are just joining us now, my name is Allison. I'm here with my colleague Melissa, and we are the PastPerfect online team. Between Melissa and myself, we've already shown you how to create links to media files and how to review your image options in the past 2 lunchtime lectures. And today we're going to wrap up this mini training series with how to make some basic changes to your site, including updating the text and adding an image to your landing page. While we're going to be focusing on the landing page today, there are actually a few changes we're going to make that will affect your entire site. Now, while I'm talking with you, Melissa is going to be answering any questions that you submit through GoToWebinar. You can submit questions using the toolbar on your screen, which is shown in this example picture. And any questions that Melissa doesn't reply to during class, we're either going to review as a group during the Q&A session at the end of class today, or Melissa or myself will be in touch with you later this afternoon to talk about your specific questions. Now, I'd actually like to start today's class with a very quick poll. Just trying to find out if you were able to attend either of our previous lunchtime lectures, linking to media files or image options. I just want to see, maybe you attended both of them, just one, if you didn't know about them at all, or maybe you thought that we could send you a free lunch somehow through the computer. So we're going to take about 30 seconds just to let a couple more votes come in, and then we'll move on with class. All right, so let's close up voting here. And let's just take a quick look at the results of the poll. I'm so excited to see that about half of the people we've got here today were able to attend both of the previous lectures as well as this one. And then after that, we're pretty evenly split about who was able to attend just one webinar or didn't attend either. Really happy to see that there are a few of you who didn't know about the others and that no one thought we were at the point in technology yet where we could send you a lunch through the computer, although I really wish that we could. For those of you who did miss either of the previous classes, you can head over to museumsoftware.com/PPO lunch to view the recording. All of the emails that you've received through GoToWebinar for this class do contain a link to this training page, as will the follow-up email that's going to be sent out tomorrow. Today's recording is going to be posted on that site as well once that recording is available. So what changes are we going to make today? The 3 changes we're going to make that will affect your entire site are going to be the background color. We're going to change the header, the logo at the very top of the page, and then the footer at the very bottom. We're going to add some text. We're going to change the font size. And then we're going to make 2 changes to the landing page specifically. We're going to add in a new paragraph about a search option that's available on the site. And we're going to add an image link to a featured collection item in hopes that we can really spread awareness about that artifact to our visitors who may not find it otherwise. So let's take just a really quick comparison look here of the left, which is our site, the way that it is right now, and then on the right, which is what we're going to end up with by the end of class. You can see, first of all, that we've got this background, the purple background on the left, whereas by the end of class today, we're going to be more of a very light gray. You can also see at the top that logo, which is a little bit bare, but it's got all the essential information. And just to wrap up class, we're going to be a little bit fun. We're going to add in today's lunch, hopefully for someone here. And then at the very, very bottom, we've got our footer. And on the left, what we've got right now is just one quick line with our contact information. By the end of class, We're going to have a new line. The text size we are going to change as well. It's a little difficult to see here. We had to make everything quite small to fit it all on the page. But those are the 3 site-wide changes that you're going to see no matter where you are on the PastPerfect online site. The 2 landing page specific changes we're going to make are the search by term paragraph right above that header, just explaining to our visitors how that works. And then finally, the featured item right here, this image of a hay truck, which is directly taken from one of our PastPerfect online records. Now, we're going to accomplish all of these changes in IMS using HTML and CSS. That's a lot of acronyms for us to just try to absorb right now. So let's break them down. So IMS is the interface management site. This is the admin page for your PastPerfect online site where all of the design aspects are set. The background color that we're changing, the footer, the header, and there's actually a lot more changes in here that we don't quite have time for today, but it's a very, very comprehensive place to really personalize the look of your site. HTML, that's the hypertext markup language. It's a computer language which formats your content, the information that you're sharing online, so that design can easily be applied. Lucky for you, you don't have to know any HTML at all to share your collections online. That's all built in when you create your files. But we are going to talk a little bit about HTML within this interface management site so that you can customize your landing page, your footer, and those other areas. And then finally, CSS is Cascading Style Sheet. This is how you actually apply design to that content, to that HTML. Both HTML and CSS are used across the internet on web pages that you visit every single day. So it's not a PastPerfect online specific thing. There are tons of books out there if you want to learn more. And I know that some, if not many of you, have very little familiarity with HTML and CSS, and that's absolutely fine. Today, we're not trying to turn you into web designers or teach you how to make websites, but we do want you to leave class today with an understanding of how some of the most common changes to a site are made if it is something that you'd like to pursue on your own. So before we do make any changes to our site, I do want to review 2 resources that we're going to use during class today that you may find helpful. So the first one that we can see here is an HTML and CSS resource just to go over some basics. This resource is going to be listed on the Lunchtime lecture page later today, that PPO lunch page. And the first 2 pages of this here are going to talk about HTML. We can see that we cover some of the more common formatting that you may want to do, underlining your text, putting in paragraphs, even creating hyperlinks so that your visitor can click on it and go to a different page. And then when we move to the second page, we've got an example of some HTML that we've put together on the left and how it would actually display on the right, just to give you more of a real-world example. And then finally, the third page of this resource is an introduction to CSS, to that cascading style sheet. And what I want to point out here is that CSS is really broken into 2 parts. So let's take a look at this red text. The first part where we see body right here, that's a label. That's saying which part of the HTML we're actually going to be changing, what we're going to be designing. And then everything that's within those curly braces after it are specifying which of those changes are going to be made. We're going to talk about that a little bit more during class today, but I really recommend trying to find some books or some online resources if this is something that you'd like to learn more about in your spare time. There's a lot of great stuff out there. So the second resource that we're going to talk about today is going to help you with CSS when you need to determine where to apply a change. And this is a page element diagram found in the PastPerfect Online User Guide. And it looks a little bit confusing right now. There's lots of colors and numbers on the screen, but this is an easy way for you to see which area of CSS we're trying to change. So we've got the different sections called out, we've got the colors and the numbers, and then if we scroll down directly below the image, it's going to give you a name for each of those sections. And we are going to come back here in just a little bit. And again, links to both of these resources is going to be included on the Lunchtime lecture page after class. So don't worry about trying to get these addresses right now. We will make sure that you have them. But now that we've got a little bit of background, we need to get into IMS. All of the information that you need to log into IMS is on the welcome letter that was sent when your site was set up. If you cannot locate your welcome letter, please email us after class at pposupport@museumsoftware.com. That'll go to both myself and Melissa, and one of us will be able to help you out with that. So let's take a look at an example welcome letter. At the top of this welcome letter, we've got the date that this letter was written, as well as contact information, hosting information for your site. And this is all accurate as to when that letter was created. But what I really want to focus on is down at the bottom, where we've got our IMS site address, museum manager email, and the password. And these three pieces of information are what you need in order to access IMS and log in to make these changes that we're talking about. Now, I've already logged into IMS for our site, so I'm going to bring my browser back up and head over to that. There are a lot of changes that can be made in IMS, and we're only going to cover a few of them today. I do suggest checking out the user guide after class for detailed information on all the other available options, and get in touch with us if you do have any questions. And in fact, today, it does look a little bit overwhelming with all of the things that are listed here, all of the tabs that are on the screen, but we're really only going to be touching on a few of them. The first place that we're going to look is in the CSS tab. The CSS tab controls the majority of the design for your site. There is no undo or reset option. So anytime that you make changes here, we strongly suggest that you copy and paste the existing text into a Word document or a Notepad document just for safekeeping. Even though Melissa and I work in IMS all the time, this is something that we always do just to have a short-term copy of that original. You know, we all get to that point where you think you're clicking in a different spot and then you really are. You may hit the backspace button, but really anything that you can do to keep this information safe is what we want to start with. So let's do that right now. I'm going to click inside of this custom CSS section and press Control A on my keyboard. A is in all, and that's going to select all of the text that's in here. Then I'll use Control C for copy. Open up a Notepad document. And then Control V as in Victor to paste that and just keep it safe. So now that I've got a copy of the CSS, the first change that we're going to talk about is changing the site's background color. I'm going to open up our page right now just to do a quick refresher on what it looks like, since it been a little bit since we looked at that comparison image. So we can see that right now we've got this purple background, and it's just a little bit dark in my opinion. It's not quite the visual impact that I want to give. And this background color is a very easy way to make your PastPerfect online site complement the design of your main website. And it is going to affect each page of your site. So I'd like to change this to a different color. And the way that I'm going to start is actually looking at that page element diagram we saw earlier, so I can figure out where I need to make my change in IMS. So in the diagram, I can see here that the section I want to change is there's a whole background area that's dark gray in the picture, surrounded by the red box, and it's given the number 1. If I look at the list below that image, I can see that number 1 is the body. So that's what we're going to look for in IMS. So I'll head back over to my admin site. And actually, we do see that body is listed right here at the top. Now, I need to figure out what color I'd like to change it to. We know that right now that background is purple, but I don't see the word purple listed anywhere. Instead, I've got this code, this 9-digit number here that's telling IMS which color to display for the background. Now, there are many ways to list colors online, but this system right here, called a hex code, is one of the most common. A hex code is a 6-character code made up of the numbers 0 through 9 and the letters A through F. And this system allows you to be much more precise with your color selection. There are a lot of color selector tools online, but the one that we want to use today is from an organization called W3 Schools, and you can feel free to use whichever one you like. We just think that this one is nice and easy. And what I need to do first is use this little honeycomb to find the base color that I want. I'm good with using a light gray, so I'm going to leave it directly in the middle on white. And then once we've got that selected, on the right side here, it's going to show us different shades, just going from white all the way down to black. And I'm going to stick with this one right here at 90%. So I'm going to copy this number. And now that I know where to make the change in our CSS, and I know what color code I need to use, we can make that change. So I'll head into IMS, find my color code that was currently on there, erase it, and I'm going to paste in the new code. And then I'll click Update Museum to save that change. And now I can click on this Open Website link to view the new background color. If there are any other colors that you wanted to change on your site, we can use that exact same process that we just did of reviewing the page element diagram, selecting the color with your color picker, and then making the change in IMS. You should be sure to review your site after making any changes in IMS and look through a couple different pages just to make sure it did have the intended results. So now that I can see our new site with this background color, this lighter color in place, the next site-wide change we're going to make is updating this image at the top. This is something to be especially aware of if your museum has gone through rebranding recently, since this is a very easy way to visually connect your PastPerfect online site with your main website. And this is in a section that's called the header. Now, there are two parts to updating this image that appears at the top of your page. And the first is going to be in IMS on this Site tab that you get brought to whenever you log in and whenever you make a change. If I scroll down, we can see a section called Site Logo. And I'm going to click on this Browse button here. If you're using a different browser than I am, you might have Choose File or some slightly different wording, but it all does the same thing. And then I have to find where my file is located, and it's going to be, let's see, in my desktop. And I'll select the file that I've already created, click Open. I can see that this filled in next to that Browse button. And then I click Update Museum. And now we can see our new logo, which does include a very delicious looking lunch. So again, there's 2 steps to this. We just did the first step. And the second step is going to be to copy this address below the image. And I'm just using my keyboard shortcuts, Control-C for copy. And then we have to head into the header footer section. And we need to look for a very specific set of quotes here. And we're looking for right here where it says this image and then SRC for source. This is the link for the old banner that was in place. I'm going to highlight it and erase it. I can see that my cursor is directly in between those 2 sets of quotes. And then I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut, Control-V as in Victor, to paste and get that new image in there. You'll want to be sure that you are using these correct quotes, that image source. If you use the first one, it's going to change where that link goes to. And this is something we are going to break down a little bit more later. But just keep in mind that when you're trying to change your image, we're looking for this second set right here within this section called image. So just like before, now that I've made the change, we're going to click Update Museum at the top. And then click on the Open Website so that we can see our change. So now not only do we have this lighter gray background, we do have our new image appearing at the top. The last site-wide change that we're going to make today is to the bottom of the page in this section here that I know is called the footer. Right now, it's just got our contact information, but since the holidays are coming up, I'd like to add in when we're going to be closed. I'd also like to make the text in this area a little bit larger so it's easier to read. So let's head back into IMS. And we're going to go back to that header footer tab we were just in. But this time we're going to use the footer text down at the bottom. You can see the text that's already in place. And I'm just going to bring up some text I already typed up to add in. And copy it. So what we have in here, this 2 BRs, that's HTML, and that's saying that this is a line break. By putting in 2, I'm going to have a little bit of extra space between all of our contact information and this holiday closing information, just so it stands out a little bit more. I'd also like to update the copyright year from 2017 to 2018. Now's a really good time to take care of that. Before I save my change, I'm going to head over to CSS to update that font size and make it a little bit larger. I already know that this section is called footer, so that's what I'm going to look for. But if I wasn't sure about what the name of it was, I could head back to that page element diagram that we looked at earlier, just to figure out what we're looking for. So now I found footer. And the font size right now is 12 pixels. I'm just going to update that to be 16. These numbers work similar to your word processing programs where the smaller the number is, the smaller the text will be. So let's just make it a little bit larger than it was before, from 12 to 16. I'm going to click Update Museum to save my change. And then Open Website. And there we go. We've got that new holiday closure information available, and I think this looks much better than before. Much easier to read now. So that wraps up the 3 changes we made that are going to affect every single page on this PastPerfect online site. The next 2 that we make are going to be specific to the landing page alone. By default, when we set up your PastPerfect online site, we put in some generic search tips on this landing page. Some organizations do leave this default text, others modify it, and still some will just completely scrap it and start over with their own text. We highly encourage you to modify the text to really make it your own and make sure that your web visitors can use this information to get the most out of your online collections. So the first change that I'd like to do is add in a section about the search by term search option down at the bottom below all of our other search tips. So what I'll do is head back into IMS, since that's again where we make all of the changes to this site here. And I'm going to head into the section that's called Landing Page. If I scroll down, I can see this section about our last search tip, talking about the catalog searches. So I know that my new text needs to go in here. Just like before, I've already put some text together, so you don't have to sit and watch me type it out. But I'm going to paste it in exactly where I'd like it to appear on the site. You can see that I've included a couple extra HTML tags in here. We've got this H4, which calls out that search by term on this line here is a heading, and we see that in all of the other tips. We've got this P, which indicates that this is a paragraph. And then finally, we've got the B in here, which is going to make this text, search by term, appear bold. The important thing here is that I'm using the same formatting as the other tips on the page, so everything is going to look cohesive. It's going to all be put together and be easy for the web visitor to digest. So let's go up and save our change with that Update Museum button. We'll click Open Website to view. And now when I scroll down, we've got this new search by term little paragraph in here. And since I did use the same HTML as the other sections, this new paragraph looks exactly like the others. The very last change we're going to make today is a little bit more complex. We're going to add an image above these search tips, above this keyword search, so that we can display a featured item from our online collection. And not only is this going to be an image for a web visitor to get to see that record, we're going to make it a link so that they can click on the thumbnail image and go directly to that record. So what I'd like to do first is just show you how this HTML is going to work, because again, it is a little bit tricky. So the first section here, we're going to talk about putting that image in place. What's highlighted on the screen right now is all essential HTML for your image to display. The IMG at the beginning says that this is going to be an image. We've got SRC, that's the source. This is going to specify where on the internet it's pulling that image from. And then towards the end, we've got alt. That's an alt tag that's going to be used primarily for screen readers so that they can actually explain what this image is. So the two things that you're going to be changing when you're adding an image to your PastPerfect online site is the source address, where that image is actually located. In our case, this is our PastPerfect logo, and so it's just located in museumsoftware.com/logo. And then you'll also want to update that alt text. So if this is something specific, we want to call out this is the front of your museum, anything like that. This is a great place to put it so that those screen readers do know what this image is of. So once we've got our image figured out, the next thing that we need to talk about is that clickable link so that the visitor can get directly to that catalog record. So just like before, I've highlighted the essential parts of the HTML, which need to be there for the link to function properly. We've got the A, which means this is a link. That href is the reference saying this is where the web visitor is going to go once they click on it. And then just some closing things so it knows where the link ends. The two things that you're going to change in here are the location where the visitor will be brought when they click on the link. And it is important that you have the HTTP, that whole address in there. And the second thing is the text that's going to appear when you click on that, when you're looking at that link to click on it. What we're going to do today is take the image HTML and we're going to squish it in to the link. So instead of putting in this text that's highlighted right now, we're actually going to just take all of the HTML for the image. So now that we've got that general concept down, we're going to go to our PastPerfect online site and find the record that we want to use. So I'm going to do a keyword search and put in that object ID. And then we'll go to that record. And I'm going to right-click on this thumbnail. And I'm going to I'm just going to click on this copy link. Now, what you might have, depending on your browser, is a little bit different text. They're all going to be slightly different. I believe that for Chrome, you do have the option to view an image in a new tab, for example. But I'm just going to copy this here for right now. And then I can head over to IMS, head to my landing page, and we're going to put in the HTML that I've already started to put together. So let me bring that up and copy it in. So I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit so we can talk about what this really means here. You can see that we've got our image information. So we've got our image source. This is that information I copied from right-clicking on the hyperlink or right-clicking on the thumbnail. I changed my alt tag so that it specifies which record this is for that screen reader to know a little bit more about what it's looking at. And this all appears within that link information. So we've got our link. This is the actual catalog record. This will bring people to the record itself once they click on the thumbnail. And then we're closing that up to say anything after this is no longer part of this link. There's a little bit more in here. I've got an H3 heading instead of the H4 we looked at earlier. That's just because if I look at the page as a hierarchy, I want this to be a higher priority than those search tips we looked at before. And then we've also got this center piece, and that just means that this section between center and then this end center down here at the bottom is going to be centered on the page, even though nothing else is. And this is really just for that visual purpose. So now that I've made that change, I'm just going to fix my zoom again. I'm going to save it and take a look at the site. So now with all those changes, we have our different background color. We have our new image at the top of the screen. We have our additional closing information in the footer, as well as the larger font size. We have our new search by term paragraph. And then at the top here, we've got our featured item, which I can click on and go directly to that catalog record. So Melissa and I know that working with HTML and CSS can seem overwhelming. We just barely scratched the surface of it today. So if you do leave class and know that this is not something you're comfortable with, just remember that we're here to help, and we're really happy to make changes to your site. And we hope that you at least have an idea from today of what can be done. But if this is something that you enjoy, you want to play around with on your site, go for it. Just make sure you do copy it first. And if you're ever at the point of feeling like your entire site needs to be overhauled, just get in touch with us and we'd be happy to do that for you. So I just want to review those resources we talked about earlier. We had the user guide page element diagram. We used that color selector tool. And we had that introduction to HTML and CSS document. All of these are going to be included on the Lunchtime lecture page before the end of the day today, so you'll be able to get into those on your own. And before we do head into the question and answer portion of class today, we're going to take just a quick 2-minute break. Hopefully you can take that time to grab a really quick drink, but we want you to submit your questions through that GoToWebinar questions box. Any questions that you've got about your PastPerfect online landing page, making those changes, and we're going to be right back to keep on addressing those. Okay, so welcome back. We just wanted to take that quick break to get you all ready for our question and answer session. We did have a couple great questions come in. So I'd like to get started with the first one, which is actually asking about that header image at the top of your page. And let me just bring up my screen here. So we're talking about this site logo that we uploaded through IMS. And are there any recommended sizes or settings of what you should use when you're creating that banner? So there's no specific size that you have to use, but that section of the page is 960 pixels wide. So if your image is larger than that, it is going to be kind of shrunk down to fit into that space. So that is something you do want to be aware of. As far as the height goes, you'll want to think about the visitors that are actually looking at your site. So I'm going to open up our site again. And you can see here that if our image at the top here was too much taller, it's going to take up a lot of the page. And if that's something that you're interested in, that's fine. But you do want to make sure that you're really presenting your site the way that you want your visitor to see it. The image that we've gotten here right now is right around 200 pixels tall. This is 960 pixels wide by around 200 pixels tall. That seems to be a pretty good option for most organizations. The image that we had before that didn't include the little lunch was around 700 or so pixels. So that's still fine. You don't have to fill this whole width. The next question that we had come in was, is it possible to use an image as my page background instead of a solid color? And yes, that is definitely something that you can do, and again, will help tie in your PastPerfect online site to your main website. In order to do this, you're going to need to go into IMS and use this Custom Images tab to upload a custom image. This is something that if you've got any questions about, you do want to make a change like this, just get in touch with us and we can help. But it can make some really cool effects on your site, really customize it and personalize it a bit more. The next question that we've got here is asking about a color change to the navigation buttons. And this is something that we'll need to go to the CSS tab for. And if you're using your left navigation buttons, so your buttons are actually on the left side of the screen, you're going to look for something that's called left nav. And let's see if we can find that in here. Here it is. So we've got this left nav A, and you're going to change the background color, the border color. Color is going to be the actual font color, so you can work with all those. Left nav A is going to be what the button looks like normally, and then this section below left nav A hover specifies how that button will look when it's hovered over. And again, you can change the background color, the border color, and that font color. If you're using the top navigation buttons, like we've got on our site right now, you're instead going to look for this top nav section. And this works exactly the same as the left nav. You have the option to change the background color, the border color, and the color of the font itself. The next question that we've got here is asking about adding images to the footer. So today we talked about adding an image to the landing page to create this featured item. But if you actually wanted to add an image to your footer at the very bottom, that is definitely something that you can do. First, you would need to upload the image to that Custom Images tab in CSS, in IMS, like we just talked about, for an image as your page background. And then you would need to add the appropriate HTML, that image HTML we talked about earlier, into the footer text field. You may also need to add some CSS into the CSS tab, and this gets a little bit more involved. So if you're interested in a change like this, just get in touch with us. We'd be happy to help walk you through it, or if you're more comfortable, we can do it for you. We do have organizations that are interested in adding sponsor logos. You know, if you're part of an umbrella organization, you wanted to add your parent organization's logo on there, that's definitely something that you can do. And actually, we've got a follow-up question on that, asking if you can add more than one image to your landing page, to your footer, anything like that. Yep, again, you'll just have to upload the images you're looking for, you're looking to use in IMS into that custom images tab. Tab, and you can have up to, I believe it's 12 or 13 custom images in there. So do think very carefully about what you're uploading. If there are custom images already in there and you're not sure what they're for, get in touch with us. We do sometimes use those custom images when we initially set up your site for some design. So if you do just go in there, you see some and you start deleting them, it may affect your website. So just be wary of that. But yes, you can absolutely add multiple images into your footer, into your landing page. There might just be a little bit more HTML and CSS you need to add in to have them all work together and display nicely on your page. So just give us a call if that's something that you'd like to do. The last question that we've got here, it's a little bit different. It's actually asking how to add a link on the landing page back to your main site. So if we take a look at our PastPerfect online site here for the Lunchtime lecture series, we right now do have a couple ways to get back to what we're considering to be our home site. The first thing that we do, and this is set up when we set up your PastPerfect online site, is we make this image at the top a link that goes back to your main website. In our case, it's going to be that Lunchtime lecture training page that we've talked about so much. And even if you switch the image, when we talked earlier, we talked about making sure you put that new address into the image source section, into those quotes. Because you're doing that, you're paying careful attention there, this link is going to continue to work even if you swap out that image. If you are working on it, you've got any questions, or you think maybe you didn't do it quite right, just give myself or Melissa a call. We're happy to take a look at it with you. So that's one way that we've got. We've also created a custom button here. All PastPerfect online sites have the option for a custom button, which will show at the very, very left if you're using this top navigation option, or it's going to be at the very top of the list if you're using the left nav buttons. And this is something that we can actually do in IMS. So I'll head back there. And all of these selections here are going to be in the Buttons tab, which we haven't looked at yet today. And we have this option here at the very top for our custom button. The name is going to be what actually displays on the site. In our case, we've called it Home. And then you need to enter in the URL, that address, for your main website. Again, we're using our PPO lunch training page as this example, but if you wanted to go to your museum's main page, maybe you've got a specific page on there for your online collections that you'd like to link to instead, you can really use this for whatever you'd like. And then once you've put in that name and that URL, you'll just click on Update Museum, and then when you open your website, you'll see your new custom button in place. So looks like that's all the questions that we've got for right now. Really so glad that all of you could make it here. I do want to thank you for coming today, and hope that you learned a lot and you're ready to review the look of your site. Again, don't hesitate to be in touch if you've got any questions about PastPerfect Online. I'm going to leave our contact information up on the screen for a little bit here in case you don't have it. You can see at the bottom we do have a link to that Lunchtime lecture training page, but you can also find that PPO lunch link in all of your GoToWebinar emails you've gotten about this webinar. And then finally, there is a survey that you can take when leaving the webinar today. Melissa and I would love to get your feedback so that we can keep improving our classes. And if you can't take that survey right now, it is going to be included in the follow-up email you'll receive tomorrow. So thank you again for joining us. We hope you had a great time. We sure did. And happy holidays.